The sun over Dry Creek scorched like a branding iron on a man's neck, hot, relentless, unyielding. Dust coated every breath, settling into the creases of faces worn by too many harsh seasons. Amid the dry clatter of hooves and creaking wagon wheels, the auctioneer's voice sliced through the heat like a lash, sharp as the sun overhead. Lot 16. One sturdy girl, 15 years, skilled with her hands, better with a shovel. No trouble, no debts, no kin. Bidding starts at $10. No one flinched, not the crowd, not the girl on the wooden platform, wrists bound, and not the man in the weathered hat at the corral's edge. That man was Caleb Hart, a rancher whose dreams once stretched as wide as the plains but had dwindled to a handful of scrappy cattle and a sagging fence. His beard was more dust than hair, his eyes hard with the look of someone who'd given up on the world's mercy. He hadn't come to town to buy anyone just for nails, feed, and maybe a cheap whiskey to drown the 200 acres of regret waiting back at his ranch. But then he saw her. She didn't weep or cower, just stood in a faded dress and heavy boots, a split lip and one eye swollen half shut. Her jaw held defiance, a tilt of her head that dared, try me. The crowd barely noticed her. Boys fetched more, stronger backs, fewer questions. Girls like her were a burden. One man chuckled. Might make a decent scarecrow. Another spat into the dirt. The auctioneer's frown deepened. Caleb Hart raised his hand. The man beside him squinted. You drunk, Hart? Reckon I'm about to be. $15, Caleb said. The auctioneer barked, sold, before anyone could counter. The girl stayed silent as they rode out of town, her slight frame swaying behind Caleb on his horse. He offered no words, and they traveled under the setting sun, quiet as the wind through dry grass. By starlight, the Hart Ranch appeared, an old homestead slumping into the hills like a weary soul. Caleb dismounted, helped her down. She didn't thank him. He didn't expect her to. Inside, the ranch house was sparse but titty-o wood-burning stove, one bed, a rough table with 2 chairs. Caleb poured water from a tin jug and handed it to her. She drank half, her cracked lip bleeding again. What's your name? He asked. Don't have one, she said flatly. He frowned. Everyone's got a name. Not me. Her eyes met his steady, not scared, not angry, just plain truth. He nodded. Fair enough. She sat by the fireplace, arms wrapped around her knees like a cornered coyote. Caleb tossed her a blanket. Get some sleep. He barely slept himself. Come morning, the wind wailed through the canyon. The girl was already up, feeding the mule. Caleb watched from the doorway, coffee in hand. Ever worked a ranch? I've worked plenty. Cows ain't much different from Monty. Eat. They stink. They kick when you're not ready. Caleb snorted. You got that right. By noon, she'd shoveled the barn, patched the chicken coop, and rewired a busted fence section. She spoke only when spoken to, but worked like it was all she knew. That night, Caleb sat on the porch, boots off, staring at the stars. She joined him, arms crossed. Why'd you do it? She asked. Why what? Why'd you buy me? He didn't look at her. You needed out. I needed help. You could have left me. I could have. She didn't thank him. He didn't expect her to. People will talk, she said. Let em. She studied his face in the dark. You ever been married? Once. Fever took her. Silence settled, heavy with shared loss. She shifted. You could marry me. Caleb turned slowly. You don't know what you're saying. I know exactly what I'm saying. You bought me. I belong to you. Least I can do is make it legal. It ain't right, he muttered. Ain't nothing about this life right, mister. Ain't nothing about me that ever was. She stared at the land, shoulders squared like someone older than her years. Give me a name, she said softly. Give me a name, and I'll marry you before the sun sets. Caleb stood, his shadow stretching across the porch. Why me? You looked at me like I was a person, not a price. He studied her then, really saw her not just a battered girl with bruises and calloused hands, but something fierce, raw, alive. All right, he said. Name's Sarah. She nodded once. Sarah Hart sounds like it belongs somewhere. He didn't smile, but his eyes softened. Reverend still in town? Likely. You sure about this? I'm sure. Ain't got much to lose. They rode into town that day, her in his clean shirt and oversized boots. The clerk at the chapel asked no questions. Caleb signed the license. Sarah's hand didn't tremble as she wrote her new name. The vows were brief, the silence after briefer. On the ride back, she leaned against him, not from affection but exhaustion. Caleb's heartbeat felt heavier than usual. At dusk, they reached the ranch, the sky blazing orange, coyotes yipping in the distance. Sarah stepped down, looking around like the place was hers for the first time. "You expect me to be your wife now?" she asked. "No," Caleb said. "I expect you to be Sarah." She nodded and went inside without a word. That night, as the wind curled around the eaves and the fire crackled, Caleb sat at the table, staring at the ring on his finger like it belonged to someone else. Sarah lay on the cot, eyes fixed on the ceiling, sleepless. Neither slept much, but the silence between them had shifted. There was no love yet, but something stubborn was taking root, like a seed in desert soil. Mornings at Hart Ranch came early, scented with coffee and the creak of old wood. Sarah rose before the rooster, her hands already rough from rope and rake, boots caked with earth. She didn't ask what needed doing, she just did it. Caleb noticed everything. She fixed troughs before he mentioned them, mended a snapped saddle strap without complaint, and when a storm hit the second week, she stood in the barn door, sleeves rolled, daring the sky to test her. "You always this mean to clouds?" Caleb asked, stepping beside her with a bucket. "I don't trust anything that shows up loud and leaves a mess," she replied, eyes on the horizon. He grinned, a rare curl of his mouth. The storm was brutal. Wind tore through wheat. Rain fell cold and fast. They braced barn doors with beams and prayers. The roof leaked. The mule screamed at thunder, but Sarah didn't flinch. When morning broke, silver light painting the hills, she cleared debris like the storm hadn't touched her. By the third week, whispers spread at the general store. "That Hart fella's lost it," they said. "Married a girl off the auction block. Desperate or dangerous?" Caleb ignored them, but Sarah heard. "They think I'm a curse," she said one night, stitching a saddlebag, her hands deft. "I've been cursed before," Caleb muttered. "Didn't look like you." She glanced up, a twitch of amusement on her lips. "That a compliment?" "Might be." Their dinners were quiet bread, beans, sometimes stew when Sarah snared a rabbit. She lacked a hunter's patience, but had precision. Caleb admired that silently. Something lingered between them, not silence, but an unanswered question. One night, it broke. Moon high, shadows long, Sarah sat by the fire. Caleb sharpened a blade across the room. "You ever kill a man?" she asked, voice low. He paused. That a question or a warning? Maybe both. He eyed her. "War took a lot from me. Mercy was part of it." She nodded, understanding. "You?" "I stabbed a man once," she said, palm toward the firelight. "Tried to drag me into a wagon outside Wichow. Cut him with glass. Don't know if he died." "You run after?" "No. Walked." The fire crackled. Caleb set the blade down. "You ain't scared of me," he said. "No, why? You never looked at me like I'm something to take." He nodded. "'Cause you ain't." Their eyes met, the space between them shifting, not trust, not love, but something with roots. By month's end, Sarah rode fence lines with him. They spoke little, but Caleb found comfort in her presence. She scanned the land with eyes he'd once had, before grief dulled them. One morning, fixing a gate, she crouched in the dirt. "Ever think about selling this place?" "Every damn day," Caleb said, squinting into the sun. "Why don't you?" "'Cause it's the last thing I didn't quit." She nodded. "Maybe it's worth keeping." Trouble came late one evening. A rider, big, scarred jaw, hands too clean for a rancher, didn't knock, just dismounted like he owned the ground. "You Hart?" he asked. Caleb stepped out slow. Sarah watched from inside. "I am. Name's Vance. Heard you got a bride with no name, no kin, short history." Caleb didn't flinch. "What's your point?" "She belonged to my brother. Thought he owned her, till she cut him and ran. He died of fever a week later. I came looking. You want justice or revenge? Ain't they the same?" "Not here." Sarah stepped out, steady. "I ain't running." Vance's eyes lit with satisfaction. "Look who got brave." "Always was," she said. "You just didn't see it." Vance laughed, dry and mean. "Think a wedding to this dirt heap makes you untouchable?" Caleb stepped forward. "She didn't marry me to hide. She married me for a name." Vance spat. "You're a fool." "No," Caleb said. "I just got nothing left to fear." The men stared each other down, silence thick with threat. Vance leaned back. "Won't forget this." I'm counting on it, Caleb replied. Vance rode off, dust trailing like a serpent. Sarah watched until his hoofbeats faded. Should have shot him, she muttered. He wasn't here for a fight. Not yet. Caleb turned to her. You scared? No, she said, and meant it. That night, Sarah moved her things from the cot to the bed. She didn't ask, Caleb didn't object. They lay back to back, the quiet heavy with meaning. She reached for his hand under the blanket. He let her find it. Outside, a wolf howled a promise, not a warning. They weren't two people surviving anymore. They were one story, unfinished. Dawn brought trouble, silent and sure. 6 riders, Vance at the front, rifle across his lap. Sarah spotted them first, flour dusting her hands. She grabbed the shotgun by the porch. Caleb followed, jaw tight. Still sure you're not scared? I'm sure. They should be. He took the shotgun, handed her a 6-shooter. You're better with this. She holstered it, arms crossed. As the riders stopped 10 feet from the porch, Vance dismounted, calm but ready for blood. Told you I'd be back. And I told you not to, Caleb said. Vance's eyes gleamed. Think one ranch, one wedding, and a half-dead name protects her. She ain't looking for protection, Caleb said. She's looking for peace. Then bury her, Vance snapped. The riders stayed quiet young, hired guns with twitchy fingers. Vance pulled a stained letter from his jacket. Proof. She was bound to my brother. Paid good money. You took what wasn't yours. Sarah stepped forward. I wasn't his. I was sold. Same thing in the territories. Not on this land, Caleb said. Vance raised the letter. Think a dried-up soldier and a broken girl can rewrite the law? No, Caleb said. But we can tell it where to shove it. Tension snapped tight. The sun climbed, casting long shadows. Vance's men shifted, uncertain. Sarah's hand rested on her pistol. You want to do this? Caleb asked quietly. Vance's smile turned cruel. I want my brother's debt paid, blood or chains. The first shot came from Sarah, clean and fast. A young rider fell before his gun cleared its holster. Gunfire erupted. Caleb dove behind the trough, firing with precision. Sarah moved like lightning, weaving between porch posts, her shots dropping 2 more. The third man fled, horse squealing. Then silent smoke curled, wind shifted, 3 bodies lay in the dirt, 2 horses dead. Caleb rose, shotgun empty, sweat dripping. Sarah stood steady, breathing hard. Only Vance remained, stepping from behind a barrel, hands up, face twisted with hate. You don't have the guts, he said. You're right, Caleb said. Sarah shot him in the leg. Vance dropped, clutching his thigh as blood poured. I do, she said. Caleb walked over. Crawl back to wherever you came from. Tell everyone between here and Kansas that Hart Ranch don't take slaves, threats, or orders. Vance snarled through pain. She'll never be free. She already is, Caleb said. They left him crawling toward his horse. Sarah didn't look back. She wiped blood from her cheek and resumed baking bread. An hour later, Sheriff Tate rode in, saw the mess, and didn't ask questions. You writing this up? Caleb asked. Tate scratched his beard. Ain't nobody round here fond of the Vance sass. Then it settled. Tate nodded and rode off. That evening, Sarah sat on the porch, coffee in hand, staring at the hills. Caleb joined her. I knew someone would come, she said. I hoped they wouldn't. You didn't shoot, 'cause you were scared. You shot 'cause you know what it's like to be owned. She didn't need to respond. I'm not done running, she said. No one's asking you to. But stay tired here. Days passed calmly. Animals needed feeding, fences mending. The land didn't care about blood in the dirt. Sarah found comfort in that. One night, she walked to the creek alone. Caleb followed at a distance. She knelt, hands in cold water. I used to dream about rivers, she said. In the auction house, I'd close my eyes and hear one. You're not dreaming now, Caleb said, sitting beside her. No, but I don't know what kind of woman I'm allowed to be. Whatever kind you want. That's simple. No, but it's true. They sat, a coyote howling, wind rustling grass. Back at the house, Caleb fixed a loose hinge. Sarah watched. We never had a real wedding, she said. He didn't look up. You want one. I want something real. He met her eyes. You got it. 3 days later, they married again under a twisted oak. No preacher, no crowd. Caleb spoke words from memory. Sarah whispered vows to herself. They held hands, stared at the horizon, and stood still. The land stayed dry, the work hard, but something had shifted. That night, Sarah rested her head on Caleb's chest, his heartbeat the only truth she trusted. "I thought love was soft," she said. "It ain't," he replied. "It's what you carry when nothing else moves." Their story wasn't perfect, jagged, scarred, full of ghosts and gunfire, but it was theirs, and it wasn't over. The next morning, a storm brewed, dust whipping through the valley. Caleb stood at the field's edge, eyes on the northern trail. "5," he muttered. "Maybe 6. Sarah tightened her gun belt. "Too many for drifters." "They ain't drifters." Vance swats left of M. The name burned like rust in her mouth. Since the standoff, whispers had spread, broken men telling tales of rebellion at the Hart place. Most dismissed them, but the wrong kind listened. "They think you're building an army," Caleb said. "I'm not. But they think you are. That's enough." The Vances hadn't vanished, they'd scattered, waiting to regroup. The man crawling from their yard hadn't fled in defeat. He'd gone to rally his kin. Now they were back, not for Sarah, but to erase her defiance, a woman who refused to stay sold, a man who armed her and stepped aside. 6 shadows rode through the heat haze, led by a stranger with the Vance look, colder, precise. His name was Gideon Vance, the eldest, a bounty hunter turned executioner. Ruth swallowed hard. "He's different." "He's worse," Caleb said. "Killing's not a tool for him, it's the point." They worked fast. Caleb checked windows, loaded rounds. Sarah scattered shells across the yard, memories of her father's preparations before debt and gunfire took their farm. Every move had purpose. They weren't defending a home, but making a stand. As the riders reached the gate, a storm broke, thunder cracked, lightning flashed. Gideon dismounted, black coat flapping like a funeral flag. Sarah stepped out, revolver on her hip, fire in her chest. "You must be Gideon." "You're Sarah." "That's right. I'm not here for your husband." "You won't get him either." Gideon's eyes narrowed. "He didn't take you. He armed you." "That's worse." "Then I'm the threat. Come for me." He tilted his head. "I'd rather break him first." "You're welcome to try," Caleb said, stepping from behind the barn, rifle raised. The riders flinched. Gideon raised a hand. They froze. "No one moves unless I say." "You came for war," Caleb said. "Let's not pretend." "I came for correction," Gideon replied. "You're not supposed to survive, Sarah. You're supposed to show others what happens when they rebel." "I am," she said. "Look around." A shot rang out. One of Gideon's men, young and twitchy, fired too soon. Sarah dropped behind a barrel as Caleb struck the boy in the chest. Chaos erupted, rain hammering the earth. Bullets tore through the air. Sarah moved like a ghost, firing with precision. 2 riders fell. Caleb held the front, every shot deliberate. Gideon advanced, bullets seeming to avoid him. Sarah ducked behind the well, reloading. She saw Caleb limp, grazed in the thigh. Gideon saw it too, shifting direction. Her shot went wide. His splintered wood near her face. Caleb reached the porch, blood dripping, and waited. Gideon climbed the steps, calm. "You gave her power," he said. "But you're the root. Cut you, the rest dies." Caleb raised his rifle. "Wrong. I'm not her roots." Gideon lunged, the men clashing like stone. Caleb swung his rifle. Gideon drew a knife. They grappled, slipping on wet boards. Sarah screamed Caleb's name, but he didn't falter. He headbutted Gideon, sending him stumbling. Sarah leapt onto the porch, firing twice, one to Gideon's knee, one to his hand. The knife fell. Gideon collapsed, reaching weakly. "You think killing makes you powerful?" she said. He grinned, blood on his lips. "Then what did you come for?" "Justice." Her final shot echoed like thunder. Gideon died, sneer frozen. Sarah knelt beside Caleb, pale but conscious. "Still here," he muttered. "You better be." They walked inside, every step defiance. The storm eased, wind fading. Later, bodies buried, tools stowed. Sarah sat beside Caleb on the porch, his hand on hers. "You killed a legend," he said. "No. I buried a nightmare." "What now?" She looked at the horizon, sunlight breaking through. "We build." "From what?" "Us." No cheers, no parades, just survival, stitched with blood and rain, fierce enough to last. In towns far off, people whispered of a woman with steel eyes and a man who stood with her, no matter the storm. Hart Ranch stayed quiet, but the silence wasn't fear, it was respect.